Sharing is caring in the umbrella department. Love it when players share their umbrellas with the ball kids.
If you had been sitting just a few rows from the court at the Steffi Graf Stadion on a warm afternoon in Berlin this week, the first unforgettable moment would not have been a serve, a rally, or a winner. Instead, you would have noticed a young German girl, no older than 9, carefully walking onto the court with a microphone that looked almost too large for her hands. Standing before her was 21-year-old Alex Eala from Quezon City, Philippines, ranked world number 35. In careful English, the young reporter asked a simple question: "Why do you love tennis?" Before a single point had been played, the stage had already been set for a story that was about much more than the match itself.
I love tennis because it makes me feel empowered, confident. It makes me feel strong.
Alexandra Eala gently bent down so she could answer the child at eye level, turning a brief exchange into a moment that felt remarkably genuine. Inside a stadium with roughly 4,500 seats, named after German tennis legend Steffi Graf, the scene was impossible to ignore. A Filipino wildcard, a young Berlin reporter, and a microphone passed between them with quiet care created an image that captured everyone's attention. That is where this story truly begins, not with a final score or a dramatic victory, but with a WTA Kids press conference shared across the tour's official platforms. Long before Eala earned a headline with her tennis, the crowd had already warmed to her presence. What makes the moment even more remarkable is that the WTA selected her for this featured, mic'd-up segment before she had won a single match in Berlin, entering the tournament as a world number 35 wildcard in a draw loaded with top 10 stars. She was chosen by event organizers who understand exactly which players attract attention in one of Europe's biggest tennis markets. They didn't spotlight the hometown favorite or the defending champion. They chose Alexandra Eala. Then it became her responsibility to justify that faith on the court. To be fair, there was a reasonable argument from skeptics at the time. Through much of the 2026 spring season, many observers believed Eala remained primarily a hard-court player whose reputation still rested heavily on her memorable 2025 Miami semifinal run. She exited Stuttgart in the opening round on clay, suffered another first-round defeat at Roland Garros, and earlier in the year endured a one-sided loss to Linda Noskova at Indian Wells, winning only 2 games. Those results encouraged a familiar narrative, an exceptionally talented Filipino trailblazer capable of making history, but perhaps one whose success depended on specific conditions rather than consistent performance across every surface. At that stage, it was a perfectly reasonable conclusion. Tennis history is filled with players who produced one spectacular tournament only to struggle to repeat it, so experienced analysts naturally remained cautious. Berlin quietly became the tournament that would test whether Eala could move beyond that label. The answer arrived not on hard courts, but on grass, a surface few had identified as her greatest strength. Over the course of 12 remarkable days, beginning with a strong run in Birmingham and continuing into Berlin, she gradually transformed public perception. And that is why this story deserves to be told in the order it unfolded. It starts with that unforgettable image because the image itself captures the entire message. On June 17th, the WTA released footage of its kids' press conference, where Eala sat across from a group of young German reporters answering thoughtful questions in English about her favorite shot, what inspired her to play tennis, and her journey through the sport. Before the biggest victories arrived, she had already connected with the audience in a way statistics alone never could.
How old are you?
The video quickly spread across the WTA's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok accounts, drawing reactions from fans in Tagalog, German, English, Spanish, and many other languages. More than a promotional clip, it became one of the defining images of the week. There was Alexandra Eala, a 21-year-old from Quezon City, sitting inside a stadium named after German tennis icon Steffi Graf, patiently answering questions from young German reporters. She treated every child with genuine respect, making it clear that the conversation itself mattered more than delivering the perfect answer. The WTA's marketing team had clearly recognized something special before the tournament even began, but publicity alone means very little in professional tennis. Eventually, a player has to justify the attention on the court. Eala did exactly that, and she did it twice in less than 48 hours. On June 18th, she stepped into the round of 16 against world number 2 Elena Rybakina, facing one of the toughest challenges possible on a grass court.
Just beat the world number 2.
Rybakina entered the match as the reigning Australian Open champion, a former Wimbledon champion, and one of the most feared servers in women's tennis. On paper, the conditions seemed perfectly suited to her strengths and far less favorable for Eala. Yet the match unfolded very differently. Eala produced one of the finest performances of her career, winning 7-5, 6-4 in straight sets. This was not the kind of narrow, lucky upset that depends on a few fortunate points. It was a composed, high-level victory against one of the world's very best players, marking the 6th top 10 win of her career. Even after such a significant result, her first instinct was humility. She described Rybakina as one of the players everyone is trying to beat, acknowledging the challenge she had just overcome. Then came another unforgettable moment. Standing on court before thousands of spectators, Eala pulled out her phone and called her father. The WTA itself highlighted the emotional scene, capturing a celebration that resonated far beyond the final score. It was a simple family moment shared in front of a crowd that had no personal connection to her. Yet the audience embraced it instantly because genuine emotion rarely requires translation. By then, Berlin had already welcomed Eala with open arms. The question was no longer whether the city appreciated her story, but whether she could continue proving she belonged among the tournament's biggest names. Only a day later, she faced another enormous challenge in the June 19th quarterfinal against 6th seed Alina Svitolina, a former world number 3 Grand Slam semifinalist, and one of the most respected competitors on the WTA Tour. Once again, Eala rose to the occasion, securing a convincing 6-3, 6-4 victory in just 1 hour and 23 minutes. Her performance was built on precision and control, finishing with 19 winners, only 9 unforced errors, and 5 breaks of serve. Those numbers reflected sustained dominance rather than a fortunate afternoon. The win earned her a place in her first WTA 500 semifinal, while also pushing her live ranking toward the world's top 30. During her on-court interview, however, Eala focused less on her own achievement and more on the player she had just defeated. She spoke warmly about Svitolina, praising her fighting spirit, saying she had admired her ever since childhood, and expressing respect for the way she had returned to the tour as both an elite athlete and a mother. Even after winning comfortably, Eala chose admiration over celebration, revealing the character that had already impressed so many people throughout the week. She was equally honest about the toughest part of the match, explaining that closing out the victory became increasingly difficult as Svitolina raised her level. Eala admitted she simply gathered every bit of focus and energy she had left, and fortunately, it was enough to finish the job. It was an unpolished but authentic reflection from a 21-year-old who understood the significance of what she had accomplished without trying to dramatize it. Looking back, those moments connected naturally with the image from just 2 days earlier when she patiently answered questions from young reporters. The kindness shown during the kids' press conference, the emotional phone call to her father, and the respect she expressed toward her opponents were not carefully scripted public relations moments. They reflected the same personality appearing consistently on and off the court. That consistency is what made her one of the defining stories of Berlin. Amid all the excitement surrounding her victories, it also became easy to forget that this remarkable run was already the second chapter of an impressive grass court surge that had begun on June 7th, when Eala captured the Birmingham Open WTA 125 title by defeating Mikola Bartonkova in a dramatic 5-7, 6-3, 7-5 final. That Birmingham victory came after a hard-fought three-set final, making it clear that what followed in Berlin was not a sudden burst of inspiration, but the continuation of a steady, upward trend. Her success on grass was built on preparation, improved execution, and a level of consistency that many casual fans had not fully noticed until now. Perhaps the strongest evidence of that momentum is not a single compliment from a famous former champion, but the pattern of attention she has received from the WTA itself. For months, the tour's official editorial team has consistently featured Alex Eala across multiple platforms. In April 2026, she appeared in a Stuttgart feature discussing the challenges of embracing growing fame while carrying the hopes of Filipino tennis fans. That was followed by the Berlin Kids press conference, post-match interviews, official match highlights, social media videos, and tournament features. Organizations like the WTA do not dedicate that level of editorial coverage to a player they believe is simply enjoying a brief moment in the spotlight. They invest in athletes they believe audiences will continue to follow. In many ways, that sustained attention is one of the clearest endorsements available because it reflects years of audience data and engagement rather than the opinion of a single commentator. Beyond the WTA's own coverage, respected analysts have also identified areas of Eala's game that continue to evolve. Commentators such as Andrea Petkovic and Greg Rosetsky have discussed the potential for further growth in her serve and physical conditioning, suggesting that her ceiling remains difficult to predict. Tennis legend Martina Navratilova has also praised the quality of her ball striking. None of these observations rely on speculation. They are all part of the public conversation surrounding her development. Together, they illustrate an important shift. The tennis world is no longer treating Alex Eala as an interesting breakthrough story that needs explaining. Instead, it is watching her as a serious competitor whose progress deserves close attention. Looking beyond one impressive semifinal appearance in Berlin, the implications become even more significant. First is her growing appeal in the European market. Berlin became the second major German tournament in 2026, following Stuttgart, where organizers prominently featured Eala in their promotional efforts. That is an important signal in a country with one of the most knowledgeable and demanding tennis fan bases, historically shaped by champions such as Angelique Kerber, Julia Gorges, and Tatiana Maria. Winning over that audience is never easy, yet Eala has steadily done exactly that. The second implication concerns Grand Slam seeding. Her strong performances have placed her on course to earn a seeded position at Wimbledon for the first time in her career. That matters because seeding is more than a number beside a player's name. It can significantly affect the draw by reducing the likelihood of facing the tournament's biggest favorites in the opening rounds, creating a more realistic path toward another deep run. Finally, there is the broader narrative surrounding her career. Ever since her remarkable breakthrough at the 2025 Miami Open, where she became the first wild card to defeat 3 Grand Slam champions in straight sets during a single WTA tournament, much of the conversation has focused on the idea of an underdog exceeding expectations. That description is becoming increasingly outdated. Alex Eala is no longer simply a wild card story. She has established herself as the first Filipino player to break into the WTA's top 30, has collected 6 career victories over top 10 opponents, and continues to demonstrate that her rise is built on sustained performance rather than isolated moments of success. Look closely at the names on Alex Eala's growing list of major victories, and a clear pattern begins to emerge. She has earned wins over Madison Keys, Iga Swiatek in Miami, Jasmine Paolini in Dubai, Coco Gauff at Indian Wells, Elena Rybakina in Berlin, and Alina Svitolina. That is not the resume of a player surviving on wildcard opportunities. It is the resume of someone performing at the level expected of a consistently seeded competitor. Berlin may ultimately be remembered as the tournament where that perception finally caught up with reality. Of course, that does not mean her journey has been without setbacks. The challenges are both genuine and recent. She suffered first-round exits at Stuttgart and Roland Garros during the clay season, and earlier in March endured a difficult defeat to Linda Noskova at Indian Wells, winning only 2 games. Ironically, Noskova was also the opponent waiting in the Berlin semifinal, setting up an opportunity to measure just how much Eala had grown in only a few months. By the time many people watch this, that rematch may already have taken place, but one fact remains beyond debate. Every setback this season has been followed by a determined response. Instead of dwelling on disappointing results, Eala adapted to a different surface, quietly refined her game, and returned looking stronger than before. In the span of just 6 weeks between her opening round loss at Roland Garros and her remarkable run in Berlin, she captured the Birmingham title and defeated 2 top 10 players on grass, a surface that very few had previously identified as one of her greatest strengths. That transformation says as much about her work ethic as it does about her talent. In the end, perhaps this story has never been only about rankings or results. In professional tennis, true belonging is not determined by nationality, a wildcard entry, or even a ranking beside a player's name. It is earned when one of the sport's most prestigious tournaments places its confidence in a young athlete, and that athlete responds by defeating the world number 2 on one of the biggest stages available. Berlin did not simply discover Alexandra Eala this week. It recognized what had already been developing for months. That distinction matters. Filipino fans filling the WTA's comment sections with messages of support had already reached that conclusion long before much of the tennis world did. They had watched her journey, celebrated every milestone, and believed her breakthrough was only a matter of time. The standing ovations inside the Steffi Graf Stadium, the admiration for her thoughtful words about Svitolina, and the emotional phone call to her father all became part of a larger story that extended well beyond one tournament. And perhaps the most lasting image remains that young girl holding the microphone at the beginning of the week. Years from now, she may remember that the first professional athlete she interviewed was a Filipina who answered every question with patience and respect inside a stadium named after one of Germany's greatest champions. It happened during the week Alexandra Eala stopped being viewed as an emerging prospect and started being recognized as one of the players the tennis world now expects to see competing on its biggest stages. With Wimbledon approaching and the next chapter of her career already unfolding, one thing has become increasingly clear. Alexandra Eala no longer needs permission to be part of the conversation. She has earned her place through her performances, and the tennis world is paying attention.